Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black-owned Business of the Week, where we showcase quality Black-owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is SoulStir Tea and Wellness, based out of Virginia Beach, where they have high-quality artisan teas crafted using premium tea leaves, organic herbs, pure spices, dried fruit, and other natural ingredients. Available to you on their website to order, including two of my personal favorites, Sweet Mahogany Roast and Tropical Cider. If you're a tea lover, be sure to visit their site so you don't miss out.
Contrary to what Birdman will have you think, respect isn't just a topping you can order on a whim. Respect must be cultivated through our interpersonal relationships, through each interaction, the way we conduct ourselves. On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew sat in among ourselves to discuss whether or not we owe our friends respect. Let's see what we come up with.
So the question we have for today, do you owe your friends respect? Comment below, let us know your opinion. My answer to the question, do you owe your friend respect? No, I don't think you owe your friend respect. I don't think you owe anybody anything. I'm myself, I am a respectful person. I will respect everybody I come in contact with, but I don't feel I owe my friends respect at all. I will say though, if you don't respect someone you don't call your friend, you shouldn't be friends with them at all. I will say that. But as far as where I got it from the Joe Budden Podcast, because they was talking about that when they had a little riff as far as business-wise. That question came up, like, do you owe your friends respect? And as I was listening to the podcast, this is probably what, two months ago, maybe about 2 months ago. But as I was listening to the podcast, I felt they didn't really explain it all the way. I felt they didn't really, not really explain it, but actually think about the actual answer and try to explain it, because one half people was like, yeah, you do owe it. Other half, no, you don't owe people respect because you feel you're indebted to somebody. But I do feel where both sides were coming from, but I feel they just didn't really sit back to think about everything that they actually said in that episode. So that's really where I got it from, really, the Joe Budden Podcast.
Okay. I would have loved to have seen that episode.
Do you watch the podcast?
Sporadically, very sporadically.
Okay. Yeah, it was like maybe 2 months ago. Yeah. But yeah, that's my answer to the question. Simple, short. No, I don't feel you owe your friends respect. I feel you should be a respectful person. You should respect everybody, but I don't feel you owe anybody anything, because at that point you feel obligated.
I have a problem with that line of thinking. Like, I guess the way that, do they word it as, do you owe someone respect? Like,
yes, that was the
okay.
exact question, yes.
Because a lot of people, they have a problem with the concept.
I'm sorry, before you go on, did you see the episode, Des? Do you know what I'm talking about? No? Okay, keep going.
Nah, I ain't seen Joe Budden Podcast since Pusha T was up there, man.
All right, go on, Brian.
A lot of people have a problem, and it's like a new age line of thinking, I feel, that they feel like nobody owes you anything, and they'll say that just for anything. I feel like that's a coping mechanism largely, and I don't think that in its truest sense, might not be the most accurate word to describe what you're getting at. I think the core concept is, should you be obligated to respect your friend? And kind of my stance on that is, it's very apparent to me, like, personally, respect is the basis of a friendship. It's the basis of any kind of interaction that I have with people that I choose to have in my life. And so I guess my line of thinking is, I'm friends with you because I respect you. I don't respect you because I'm friends with you. And to that point, why would you, I guess we agree on this point, why would you interact with someone who you don't respect? That doesn't make much sense to me. It's more so an evaluation of that person's character. If they do something that is causality for me to lose respect for them, then is that somebody I would choose to associate myself with? No. So I don't really think that the two are, I don't think that they're separable. I don't think you can be friends with somebody you don't respect. I really don't. I feel like if you do have any kind of interaction with them, it's probably out of some kind of benefit they provide to you, but it's not a true friendship.
Okay. It might be different to them, but I do agree with you, like what they as far as a friendship, but I do agree with you. It might be different to them though.
But I really don't like that idea of like no one owes you anything. And I understand what's at the heart of it. Like, understanding that people can and will behave in their best interest, and sometimes get to your own detriment. But I feel like for you to define anything as a friendship or within the confines of certain kinds of relationships, there are certain precursors such as respect, honesty, and the sort like character things. So it's something that you should be able to expect. Otherwise, why are you interacting with the person?
So you do essentially feel you do owe people, your friends, respect. I know you changed the question to.
No, I didn't change the question.
Do you feel obligated to owe your friends respect? Because you did say that. You did answer that question, but I understand why you did it too, but I'm just asking, I'm guessing you say you feel you owe your friends respect?
I'll say yes then.
Okay. Does?
So I think we're all like, we have like a consensus that you do owe your friend respect. My only dilemma, I think I can find the same dilemma that Brian will have, is like, you use the word indebted and obligation or obliged, but I would say that to owe something doesn't necessarily mean that you're indebted. It could be just a reciprocation of an act. And so respect is kind of like a moral obligation at the end of the day. You can't be friends with somebody that you don't respect. But it's not just a moral obligation to friendship. I think it's a moral obligation to, as far as like humanity goes. Because if you think about it from a perspective, like even as far as enemies go, enemies to a certain extent respect the enemy that they're going up against. Like if there was no respect, there would be nonstop war, there'd be nonstop violence, because you wouldn't respect the boundaries or the potential hazards that come with not respecting that individual. And I think that while that's respect out of fear or respect of the unknown or respect of acknowledgement, I think on the flip side of friendship, I think that it's a respect of just that person's being and a respect of, the of everything that comes with it. Because essentially, like you guys said, like you're not just going to throw the friend title around. Like somebody has earned that title of being a friend. And so with that title being earned, whether it just be through, playing video games or going to the park as kids or, linking with that person after work, like that title has been earned. And when something's being earned, there should be an obligation that comes with it that defines, the confines of that friendship. And I think respect is one of them. So I do think it's owed because it's a moral obligation at the end of the day. If there were no moral obligations with respect and friendship, then we'd be able to just throw the term friend around loosely and it not have any sound meaning. Like if that's the case, then your enemy could technically be your friend, because there's no understanding and there's no boundaries of what actually makes up the word in relationship that comes with friend. So that's the only thing. Like I think we all agree. You feel
all enemies respect each other.
Yeah, I think if you look at it from a perspective of U.S. versus Russia, like we respect the hell out of Russia. Russia respects the hell out of us. Like if respect wasn't mutual, then in the Bay of Pigs invasion and JFK or whatever, they would have. I mean, some shit would have happened other than what happened if the respect wasn't there. Because your respect is always evident when you're constantly trying to look at potential outcomes and fallouts of what will happen if you make a decision. I think that's how you can always identify or respect each other. Like even if you look at basketball, like if we want to look at Bucks and Nets series, like yeah, it was very, very there was high tension and it was a lot of physical interaction as far as players against each other, but at the end of the day they respected each other. It's a moral obligation as like an athlete.
You just compared the Bay of Pigs to the NBA Finals.
No, I use that as another example. I use it as another
example.
Yeah,
you didn't compare it to, but you used it as an example. I just
like as far as, because I mean it's different tiers. Like I'm not trying to say that the Bay of Pigs invasion and NBA Finals are on the same tier, but as far as tiers of respect go, like you could definitely identify different levels of respect in different tiers.
The principle applies. I think you touched on something really important there too. One of the biggest indicators of respect, I feel, is how somebody handles a conflict. I feel like that's the truest form of respect. There's a certain way that you conduct yourself when you respect somebody when you disagree with them. Like if you think back to like the issue, the disagreement we had about, or I guess the mix up around the logo. So unbeknownst to people who are outside of the breakdown crew, so there was I guess some confusion, some misunderstanding, and as a result of that, the way that we converse and settle the issue was much different than if we didn't have respect for each other. For one, we probably would be having a podcast if we didn't have respect for each other. So like there's a way you do and don't conduct yourself, even when you're upset with someone, or it could be your significant other, a friend, a coworker. But if there's respect, there's a certain way you do and don't conduct yourself in that situation. So I think the illustration that Des gave, like while they might be extreme examples of the Bay of Pigs or the NBA Finals, but in our interpersonal lives, that conflict really shows your true character, and it reveals the amount of respect you have for somebody. Because how could you say, like, let's say it's a woman you're with, and how could you say you respect her if, as soon as you get mad or she does something you don't like, you call her a bitch? You really respect her?
Obviously not.
Exactly.
Do you feel people confuse respect and loyalty?
I think
No.
we've had the conversation. Like, I think you and I have had the conversation as far as loyalty goes.
We've all talked about loyalty.
Well, I think before we even had the podcast, I think Josh and I might have had a conversation about loyalty. Either Josh or I were talking to coworkers about it. I don't know if I had told him the conversation I had with him, but I always say like loyalty is like a figment of your imagination, kind of like respect because they're not tangible. But I think loyalty is a figment of your imagination because there's no consensus on what loyalty is. Like loyalty to the Mafia is different than loyalty between us as podcasts. Like you and I would probably have a conversation if it was like, hey, I think I want to go do a podcast with somebody else. Like that conversation would be happening, where there's loyalty in the Mafia maybe you don't say nothing or that's your life. Like you're not gonna kill me if I want to go do another podcast. Whereas to my knowledge, right? But if I switch ties, then that's my life. So I always say, like, to people who come to me with loyalty conversations, I'll say first thing you gotta do is remove loyalty, because it's a figment of your imagination, because it's defined based off the boundaries that you give it, and those boundaries, I guarantee you, will not be the same boundaries that those other persons place when it comes to loyalty. So I think respect is just very cut and paste. Like I think we all have a general consensus of what respect is, and we can always acknowledge when those lines of respect are crossed, whether it's if you're kind of ignorant to how you should show respect, somebody's able to provide you an understanding of it, and you'll be able to grasp that understanding. Whereas with loyalty, it's always going to be based off what that person feels you owe them.
I always thought of loyalty as an internal obligation. So while I might not be able to control the actions of yourself, but I can control how I conduct myself towards you.
Right.
So in that sense, it's acknowledging the fact of you don't have any kind of agency when it comes to somebody else's behavior. Because like you said before in previous conversations, you said people will act in their best interest, and as much as that may hurt us to acknowledge, it's true. For the most part, I mean, far more times I've seen that play out that way than someone inconvenience themselves for my personal benefit. Maybe I'm projecting, but I don't.
I think that we've all experienced that. I've experienced that, whether it be in the past or recent. I think Josh, probably you, without a shadow of a doubt, have experienced that, whether it's been with friends or women or even family. Like it happens.
Did you answer the question, Brian? Did you guys say yes to the question? Do you feel people confuse respect and loyalty?
I would say no.
I don't think so.
I think there's clear lines when it comes to respect. There's not clear lines when it comes to loyalty.
I think typically when people say loyalty,
But do people know them clear lines though?
In action, I believe so. Because whenever I hear people talk about loyalty, it's always through the actions. And whether it be following somebody or supporting them blindly and in a way that inconveniences or sometimes puts you at a disadvantage, that's typically what people say is, okay, you were loyal to this person. But when it comes to respect is something that is more black and white. It's very clear. You can look at an interaction and tell if somebody respected you or not. Do you think there's a problem with people making that distinction?
I do kind of feel they confuse the two a bit. I think they kind of interchange. I think they put respect into the loyalty basket a little bit, and they kind of confuse the two. I do feel they do that, because they feel loyalty is respect, or vice versa. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel.
I think the classic example is like your barber. You're loyal to your barber until you're no longer. You want to go somewhere else, but you still respect them. Like, I'll still respect them as an individual. The two aren't interchangeable or mutually exclusive. Like, I can respect you, but still choose to take my loyalty and
you respect them as a barber.
Hair. Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, being a barber is an entrepreneur. Like, you have to Yeah, I still respect my barbers before Mike. Like, I think the dude that I go to now, his name is Mike. Like, I think I'm pretty sure I've said before, like, he's a really solid barber. Like, he cuts Pusha T's hair and does all that stuff. Like, he's been the one barber that I've gone to the longest since I've been responsible for my own hair. I've been going to him for 4 years now. And of course, you know, I went to 2 or 3 barbers like 2 or 3 years apart until I found him. And then, of course, before that, my dad was like, either always cut my hair or take me to the Navy Exchange to get my hair cut. But with him, like, I would say I'm loyal to Mike because of what he is able to provide me. Like, even if he fucks up my hair one day, I'll still have respect for him. But my loyalty may go to a new barber.
What makes somebody respectable to you? Or what makes you respect someone, Josh?
Them being themselves, basically. Like, if I was to meet someone in a store, like, I would respect them because they're another person. They probably have tough times like me. They probably have good days like me, but I'm going to respect them as a person because I know they're a person until they do something to disrespect me. And then at that point, my respect might go out the window.
So it's pretty much a universal baseline for humanity. You acknowledge a person's being, you don't look to inconvenience them or to do them any harm. That's essentially like the bare minimum. And then it builds upon there, which, I mean, that's pretty sound logic. I mean, I agree with that. But what you said, what role does somebody's character play in the amount of respect that you have for them?
The role of somebody's character?
Yeah, the characters or
well, the character. I feel the character usually comes in when they disrespect me. That's why I feel like the character. I don't care. Like, as far as the character, I don't care who you are. Like, what you do, nothing like that. Who you vote for, anything like that. I'm still gonna respect you. But I mean, until you give me a reason not to respect you, like disrespect me and treat me less than human or treat me as something else, then I'm going to not respect you. But I don't care, like, character, I don't care who you are, like white, black, Chinese, Asian, Japanese, doesn't matter. I'm going to respect you, but no matter what your character is, no matter what side you on, basically. But no, except for you, like Ku Klux Klan, I'm not going to say that. Because at that point, you're showing your character. But yeah, I'm gonna respect everyone until they give me a reason not to.
I kind of disagree with you on that, or I have a different outlook.
I was about to say, so, how can you disagree with me on that? That doesn't make sense.
I realize what I was saying.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I got you though.
It could be. I mean, your opinion could be fact. Usually
no, I was saying like what we're talking about is not like, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But just in the sense of you said the character was essentially physical characteristics. And I'm thinking more so along the lines like the respect I have for an individual grows with their moral uprightness. So I would say I respect somebody who's honest more than somebody who's not. You know, how could you, like, does that play any role into how you determine the amount of respect you have for someone?
Well, of course. I mean, I think that's really part of the basis, really, as far as like honesty and shit like that. I mean, of course, honesty is part of the actual basis. Like, I'm gonna respect everybody. I'm gonna assume everything they're telling me is honest, so they give me a reason not to, and simple as that. As far as physical characteristics, I wasn't just talking about physical characteristics. I was talking about like what you talking about, moral righteousness, everything like that too. But like if I'm meeting somebody in the store, like I don't know if they just killed a dog. I don't know if they're a serial killer, but I'm still gonna respect them until I find out the information. You know what I mean?
Yeah, until the allegations hit, right?
Exactly.
Notice I said allegations, not conviction. Des, you disagree with something Josh said prior to the killing of the dog?
No, I actually agree with what Josh said, but I think I understand what he's trying to say. I don't know if it's a mix up of the word basis. What I would say is that the basis of just respect is just kindness that you show anyone, regardless of what they may, have going on, or what their views may be. Like, even when it comes to, people that you don't have mutual views with, like we'll say a Trump supporter, or we'll say even the Ku Klux Klan, if we're going to be a little bit extreme, there's still that little, respect of kindness, that first tier, that base level of respect that I afford everyone. But then the next tier would be where I think we're coming into honesty, just your morality and its totalness, anything that would make up your character. And then I think on top of that, going up to the next tier would be like the bond you develop with that person. Because there can be, your honest friend, your honest coworker, or whatever, that may just be that base tier level friend that, you want to throw the word around just for the sake of throwing it. But as far as just respect goes altogether, like my base tier is just kindness. Like I'll always be kind to a person until they give me a reason not to be. Like I may not know the dude I'm walking down the aisle at Food Lion with is a KKK member, but I'll always acknowledge his presence because I have that basic level of respect for humanity and stuff. I think that's our obligation to humanity if we want to continue to, grow forward and as a unit. But I think that even then though, like, it's kind of laughable when I say that that's just my basic level of respect, but then you kind of go and you look at, like we always talk about before, reading comments and how people have just been ripping Simone Biles apart because of her mental health. Like she's missing out on the biggest stage of her career, even though, I mean, she gets this stage every 4 years and then, world championships and then individual meets all together. But it's like, I look at those comments and people that rip them apart and just think like, you don't even have the base level of respect for humanity to just be kind and stop projecting your viewpoints on the people that are not going to live up to what your projections are. And I always just think that that's disgusting and very divisive, because when you're going through your shit, you don't want nobody to come up to you and just say, hey, you're human, tough it out. Everybody goes through something. Like, that's going to be the last thing you want to hear. We don't go to therapy to be told that. Like, we pay good money to have people break down almost in like a web plot format what our main thing is that's bothering us, and then how each little thing may trigger it, or how we can resolve each little thing that comes from that. So it's like the base level of respect is just kindness. Like, you can be kind to anyone. You can be kind to an infant the same way you can be kind to a 90-year-old man, or you can be kind to an infant the same way you're nice to a 45-year-old Republican. Like, that the base is always going to be just kindness. Like, that's the base level of respect. Anything else out of that would then be determined off of your personal interaction with that person after hello or hi or how you doing, or even just if that doesn't get to that point and there's immediately conflict. Like if you rear end somebody and you get out the car cussing, well, where's the respect? Like,
out the window.
I'll tell you, man, like I've rear-ended like 3 people since I've had my license at 18. And each time we get out the car, it's like, hey, are you okay? Like, there's that base level of respect of just being kind to check on the individual. And then your car is next. Like, it's always the person and then the car. Like, humanity was here before the cars were here. We'll be here after the cars disappear. Like, that is still the base level of respect. It's just human kindness.
You said you got rear-ended 3 times?
No, I've I've rear-ended. My very first car, rear-ended somebody.
And they always got out of the car to see if you was okay?
No, I always got out of the car.
Of course you gonna get out the car. It's your fault.
Well, I mean, think about it. You're 18 years old. You're not thinking about shit like that. You're scared about what mom and dad are gonna think because you just rear-ended a car. But I'm getting out and I'm making sure it's cool. I'm not thinking about none of that stuff. I'm thinking about the individual.
I understand, but I mean, you kind of cornered it at that point. It's just more impressive if you got rear-ended and you got out the car. Yeah, you good? What's up?
Well, I did though. I did. So I did get rear-ended back in 2019. Yeah, July 2019. We got rear-ended in the Monitor Merrimack Tunnel because there's a car, a multi-car pileup.
I think I remember that too. I think you said.
And when I did, I got out the car and I made sure the car that ran into the back of me, because I could see in my rearview mirror that their airbags were deployed and they had kids in the car. And I got out, I was like, yo, y'all good? And it's a car at the end of the day. I mean, we can pile in the insurance aspect and the premiums going up and all that after the fact, but in that moment, it should always be some form of kindness. You can replace the car. It's fact of the matter. Replace the car.
I agree. Do you feel you owe strangers respect?
Yeah, that just goes perfectly what I was saying. You're a stranger in Food Line. When I see you and I nod to you or I smile or whatever, there are moments
Brian
where I have my days and I don't.
I think Brian has a problem with that.
No, I thought you said something else.
What?
I couldn't make out the words you said before, so I was like, what did he say? But
yeah, do you owe a stranger respect? Basically, that's what I said.
Yeah, I can pretty much answer in line with what Des was saying about general kindness towards your fellow man. And if you walk in front of somebody at the grocery store, with your example, if I'm in their way, let's say they're looking at the dried fruit or whatever, I'm walking past, excuse me, just basic manners. That's kind of it's funny you actually mentioned this too, because I saw something recently that said when somebody holds the door for you, you don't have to say thank you, or with some bullshit like that on Twitter. And of course, Des, we all know that Twitter's full of hot takes, right? What's the the word for it, or the phrase?
Yeah, this incredibly hot take is still very raw.
Yeah, incredibly hot take. That's the rawest take. It's just ridiculous to me.
Sit over the stove for a little bit longer.
It's just ridiculous to me how people lack common decency. Just because I don't know whether it's rampant individualism or lack of home training or whatever, but I think
talking about the light and dark thing. You talking about the light and dark thing? The clothes?
No.
Oh, I think you're talking about. We
were referencing that.
Okay, I think you said when people like decency. I was like, damn, just because they don't. Damn.
No. I was referencing the part about the hot take.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's just I don't know whether it's due to people not being raised properly or whether it's individuality that takes priority over everything else, and people forsake the fact that these are other human beings who have their own lives and feelings and totally outside of their existence. So I would say that, yeah, it's a certain way you do behave, and if you would categorize the basic kindness as extended to a stranger as respect, I would say yes.
Would you say something like going past somebody or cutting somebody off in traffic as disrespectful, or
what was the intent behind it?
Maybe he was in a rush.
I think
maybe you to the person.
Okay, that's a good question.
Maybe it's from your point of view and you don't know. Would you say that's disrespectful, or what would you do?
I had to stop myself, because you can disrespect somebody unintentionally and realize the action. So I would say if I did cut you off in traffic, that would be considered disrespectful to you. It was something that was potentially putting your life at risk because I was in a rush, I wasn't paying attention. And if I jeopardize your life, that's the ultimate form of disrespect.
I got you. What about you, Des?
I mean, it is. As much as you don't want to admit it, yeah. I mean, it is a form of disrespect. Like, then the day I gotta get where I gotta go. But I have like, I will say, since I've like got more years under my belt, like I definitely don't move with the sense of arrogance and narcissism that I did when I was in my younger 20s. Like I used to be a speed demon, cutting everybody off, like, get out the way, whatever. 100, because I think with everybody though, like you have that, everybody that age, to finish the statement, when you're that young, you have that aura of like invincibility, like you haven't really lived for much yet, like you're just going. And I think that, Brian, what you said perfectly, like unintentionally disrespecting somebody, I think that that's how a lot of people in their late teens, early 20s, and if they don't gain the experience in that time frame, move into their 30s and 40s, like for the most part, when you're that age and you haven't really lived for anything yet, you do have that sense of like strong individualism that trumps what is ultimately right. And I think you have to go through shit to, I mean, you have to experience stuff anyway to, you know, exceed and be better off in life. But I think that that's one of the things that people have to experience, is just like understanding, number one, most importantly, the value of life, and then two, the value of friendship, whether it be with, you know, your neighbor or a relationship. But since we're talking about respect, it's funny, a coworker brought up this video. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it yet, but she said that it was just starting to surface. Like she had seen it on TikTok and then had started seeing it a little bit on Twitter and now Instagram. And it's this, it's like pretty much a discussion. Like I don't know if it's a podcast or whatever, or if it's just something people do for the attention. But essentially, there's these men coming at women saying that essentially, what do women do in a relationship? Like they don't do anything, because essentially it was this argument that when we buy the house, cooking, cleaning, all of that does not make us equals in the relationship. Because then the excuse was, well, I can hire a maid, or I can order Uber Eats and things like that. And the woman's rebuttal was, well, we gotta look at it, when we come into a relationship, most of men become their children, because you think about it, women do a lot, almost to the point to where men could be the second or third child or first child. And then when they come into the equation, they make the house a home. And let's be honest, women do cook a lot better than whatever Uber Eats may be delivering for you. So it's almost this thing, like, I want to bring into the toxic masculinity, like how far has toxic masculinity breached the respect boundary that we have for women, if that's how a percentage of men think.
That's a brilliantly phrased question. First, I want to get something off my chest. You said that when you were talking about the women's cooking ability, and just the experience with the women that I've dated, they've all told me that I was better cooks than they were. So, and I think that kind of leans into my perspective on what you're asking, is that that's a basic life skill. And I feel like if I'm in a relationship with a woman, I'm with her for reasons other than just tangible things or things that I could do for myself. Like the support, the companionship. Do I actually enjoy her company, her presence, the way she makes me feel, her quirks, her interests, and things like that. So I feel like for you to minimize a woman to her ability to cook, like, of course, I feel like everyone should be able to cook. You don't have to be like Emerald Live or like the top of the top chef. I could take care of that myself, but I feel like you should be able to do those basic things. But at the same time, I feel like that's a very reductionist view of human beings, women by extension. And I think that is directly tied to a lack of respect for the said percentage you just were detailing. So, I mean, it all depends on, I'm trying to figure out whether or not the outlook is directly influenced by what they're looking for, or what they're looking for determined by their outlook. If you get what I'm saying. Like, do they have that amount of respect or the lack thereof for women because what they're looking for, or are they looking for, like, is it the opposite way around?
I don't know, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I turned the video off because it was just like it was so stupid. Like, I do get, you know, the woman's perspective first and foremost, because there was this, and I told her the same thing. Like, I'm the furthest thing from religious, but there was this video that that I don't know who posted it to Instagram, to their story, but it was this pastor that came out and said, the man always sets the tone for the household, but the woman creates the atmosphere. And like, that was probably the most insightful thing that I've ever seen or heard, because it's always been like something that I've struggled to like understand. Because it's always like you sometimes get so caught up in the wanting to be mutual's mind frame that you kind of dissolve the role that you play in the relationship. Like, okay, if I'm not setting the tone, then you're setting the tone today. And then shit gets all cloudy and you guys fall out because there's inconsistencies. And I finally, it was like the aha moment almost, because I've always felt that way. Like, I've always felt that I kind of do, in my relationships, I've brought forth the tone. But it's like, when my tone goes, like when I'm feeling shitty, everything goes with it almost. So it's really cool for like, well, not really cool, it's like really insightful to get that perspective, because it allows me to like be more proactive almost, to have that respect and say, I'm not feeling it today, instead of just going silent and then the atmosphere following whatever I'm feeling at that moment. Like, I think it's very, very productive, and I would say to the contrary, counterproductive, to just not respect, you know, the unionship that has been developed, whether it be just a relationship or marriage at all, and not communicate to the you know, full ability that respect commands in a relationship. Because I think at the end of the day, like, when it comes to a relationship, communication is like really the purest and biggest form of respect. Because you value that person's emotions, you value that person's individuality so much that you want to be proactive rather than being reactive, and now the person's mad because you're mad because you didn't tell them what you were mad about. The whole time what you're mad about doesn't even revolve around that individual. It's something that's a third party, whether it be work or, you know, whatever it is. And so I think that, you know, respect goes a long fucking way, man.
That's why I say respect is a foundation.
Yeah, it goes a long way. I'm definitely still learning a lot of it as myself, because I think, you know, all of us can mutually agree, like, we're not perfect individuals, and practice doesn't or what's said in theory doesn't always go into practice. You know, there are those gaps, but like, what was said really opened up a lot for me, because the tone is always going to be what creates atmosphere, man. Like, those are like gems that you know, write down in your book and you come back and you reference, because they're keys.
What were they saying in the podcast again?
They're essentially saying that a woman's role cannot be women don't do anything in a relationship, essentially, because you can find somebody that can clean the house, a maid. You can find somebody that can cook, Uber Eats, or you can find somebody to decorate the house, an interior decorator. So a woman's value in a relationship cannot be determined based off of those things. But the women's argument was, well, you have to think that when women come into this house that you're paying the mortgage for, they're making it a home. You know, when women come into the relationship, they're taking on essentially another child, because, you know, buddy wants his back scratched, or, you know, he wants his back washed, or he wants his hair washed, or he wants you to cook for him, or things like that. So it's like the tangible versus intangible argument that is being produced to try and discredit a woman's capacity in a relationship.
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think this comes with it shows the lack of respect it has for the woman. I think because, yeah, and I think his question is really interesting too, as far as what their outlook is.
Yeah. I have to send y'all a video. I'll ask my coworker that showed me it to DM me it so I can send it to y'all, because like, I'm not gonna lie, I only watched like 30 seconds of it, and when they posed that argument, like, it's a long video, like probably 11 or 12 minutes. I cut it off, man. I couldn't, like, my mind just doesn't have the attention span to pay anything that isn't of like knowledge or value. Like, I don't pay attention to anything that isn't of knowledge or value. Like, my leisure times, Star Wars and maybe Warzone. If it's not those two, or if it's not a book, like, it just does not keep my attention, and shit like that I can't watch.
Was it an all guy podcast?
No, that's what I was saying. Like, it was a mix. It was like women in there and it was men talking. So of course it's like a discussion, but it's like, I have to send it to you. You'll be able to understand it a lot better once, because it perplexed me. The first 30 seconds will perplex you, and it's like, damn, there's really people that think like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising. Yeah, it's not surprising. But you have anything else, Brian?
Yes, I'm still sorting through my thoughts on what Des just said, but I'd rather go through that once I'm more informed by the video without making a super broad generalization and getting off on some tangent. But I do have one last question. So I had cited earlier that I believe the foundation of any kind of friendship is respect. And I was curious on what your thoughts are on what is the foundation of a friendship. If it differs at all from what I said.
Well, of course. What'd you say?
What was that?
The bond, whatever linked us two together.
Yeah, I think friendship is definitely a tier. But I think honesty is a little bit of that too, because you want to be honest with your friends, and yeah, a bond too. I don't know how you guys measure friends and best friends. I don't know if you guys put those on the same pedestals, or you just...
I have gold stickers.
Okay, makes sense. But yeah, I would say a bond too. Yeah, and of course respect is in that. I mean, of course respect is in the foundation, honesty too, and yeah, I guess say some type of bond. James Bond.
What's the relationship between the two? The bond and respect. Would you say they're co-requisites, or would you say that the respect had to precede the bond, or
I would say usually the respect is first and then the bond is afterwards. I would say usually respect each other and then you guys would gain a bond. That's how I feel.
Sometimes the bond can be built when that
with the respect
interaction like it. My boys to this day, man, I remember the first day English class 10th grade when I got back from Japan. We clicked immediately over sneakers, and to this day we still sneakers. That's always going to be like the foundation of our bond is the sneakers. Of course, we branched over that, and you know, he's had conversations with me about women. I've had conversations with him about women. You know, this is a dude that I trade with, so we have like desires to grow together as, you know, partners. So it's always going to be the bond. I feel like the respect, I think, builds as the bond strengthens, and I think respect builds as the friendship becomes more tenured. But for that first like initial reaction, I think it could be one of the both, or it could be one of the same. Like the respect can precede the bond, or that bond can be built at the same moment that respect is established.
Okay.
Did you respect in that class, did you respect them when you first?
Yeah. Because you got to think, like, when we're teenagers, it's like, damn, he got a cool pair of shoes. Like, I respect that shit. Like, it was the cool gray 11s. Cool gray 11s. I had those on. I forgot what he had on. I think he initiated the interaction, but it was because I had the cool gray 11s on, and it was like just a mutual acknowledgement. It's like, all right, I get it. Like, it sounds crazy at 26 because I think I was 16 at the time. At 16, like it's like you're not thinking from that third eye perspective where you're looking at the interaction from an outsider's point of view. Mm-hmm. But it's like it was acknowledged respect and the bond built from there.
Gotcha. You gonna say something, Brian?
I was just thinking, like, what draws me to certain individuals who I have in my life, and I guess the reflexive of the question that I asked you about what makes you respect somebody, I would say, of course, with the question about, well, I guess their answer about their character and being honest and things like that. But when Des was just talking about the shoes, it made me think about how large a role that intelligence plays a role in how much I respect somebody. Because like you said, you respected his shoes, but I kind of laughed because thinking like what you said, us at 26, looking back, I was like, I respected the dude because he had a certain sneaker on, but that could be very well applied to his intelligence. Like he could be very, very astute, very sharp about shoes, could tell you anything about those sneakers, but it'd be the same thing. Like if I come across somebody who has an extensive knowledge about plants, or if they're able to have a full length conversation about some idea that I've encountered in a book that I've read or something like that, like it instantly makes me develop at least a mutual respect for them to be able to keep up or to interest me in that fashion, and that I can learn from them. I feel like if you're able to teach me something, that's something that I really do admire and respect in an individual. Whether it be something like just as simple as what Des was talking about, sneakers, or a complex topic like a book on a sociology topic, or gardening, or whatever it might be, leadership, whatever.
Interesting.
I could definitely agree with that. I remember to this day, my English class at TCC, I hated the class because it was a class that I already took in high school because of, you know how it goes. Nevertheless, there was this individual there, like I think his name was Hunter or something like that. The most articulate individual I have ever heard speak in my life. Immediate respect right there. Like that's where it comes, like the intellect, because at that age and like you're starting to study philosophy can overwhelm you to the point where you're not able to convey your thoughts accurately or cleanly. We were probably the same age, had that ability to, and he almost had like the Obama effect, where like I'm pretty sure if you ever watched an Obama speech, like he has those subtle pauses that allows him to piece whatever sentence he's about to say to where it's said in such an articulate manner that you have to like ponder on it, or he said it's conveyed in a way that's so cleanly that anybody can understand it. Like I admired that, and I had a great deal of respect, I guess, built towards him for that, because that's always been my thing. Like I've always wanted to be a great orator, but it's not my thing though. Like it's not my calling. Like it's always been a skill that I've wanted to obtain. And even in college, like I had no problem getting in front of classes and speaking, but to speak to a point to where you're conveying every single thing articulately to where anyone can understand it, like that's a different level of understanding and comfort within your own being, to where you're not worried about, emotions that you may be feeling about it, or you're not worried about people's perspectives that they may be projecting on you, like waiting for you to fuck up. Like you're just speaking very cleanly. And I will say, like, spot on with what Brian said, like your the ability to speak on that topic or convey that intelligence is like worthy of my respect.
Makes sense. I know when I first met Brian, of course I respected both of you guys when I first met you guys, but I know when I first met Brian, I know I told him that I felt like he was so like upbeat, like, oh, what's up Josh, like, it felt like he was an extrovert before actually knowing that he wasn't an extrovert, he was actually an introvert. But yeah, I mean, I've always respected Brian, but I've come to respect him even more now that he's grown to be my friend. So I do understand what you're saying as far as like his framework, as far as the basis of respect, and then there's tiers, basically. I understand what you mean. And then Des, I remember you saying that people not really, I guess not hate you, but I guess didn't really understand you because you was like rude to everybody or whatever. But I respected you too because I figured like you had a reason for doing that. I understand that there's always a reason for why people are like that. And, you know, so I think, and that's the other thing. I think the biggest thing that comes with respect is understanding. Like, if you're understanding, then you can come to respect somebody. So, and I'm pretty sure I understood why Des was like that, because I'm pretty sure I came from a certain cloth too. So, I mean, something similar. So I kind of figured. But yeah.
Josh, this never occurred to me, but it just clicked. You know, when we first met, I was a freshman at ODU, and I think you were maybe a junior. And we met sophomore. We met in a certain social circle that we indulged in certain activities. We would drink before we went out to parties. And I was just thinking, might that have lent you the idea that I was an extrovert because I was under the influence of alcohol at the time?
Hold on one second.
Bro, the way he just said that though, like, Josh, I feel it's because the way he just said that, like he's reading it, like we're in a movie and he's explaining exactly what happened at that moment without explaining what happened at that moment.
I never thought about this.
I don't know. I think maybe. Now that you're thinking about it, maybe because you was actually drunk. Man, that's possible. I'm trying to think. I've been around you sober though, right?
Yeah,
I've been around you sober.
Mostly when you've been around me, mostly. But like early on when we first started hanging out,
I do remember you drunk though. You was talkative as fuck drunk. I do remember you talkative as fuck drunk. So I can understand that. Okay, I can understand that. Yeah. But we did have one talk, like, remember the time we was walking back to the dorm, we did have a talk about the book we was talking about,
yeah.
Right? And we did have that deep
What's
talk.
The point?
So yeah, what's the point? Yeah. So we did yeah. So I think I get a glimpse of your introvertness right there, but yeah.
Well, I think every introvert though, when you have every introvert, when you have a little bit of alcohol in you, is a extrovert though, because I think the only thing in between the two is like introverts always want to understand the why or the reason behind something. You spend more time thinking than you do talking. And I'll tell you firsthand, when I'm drunk, I've always been told that like I have an intellectual drunk, that I'm an intellectual drunk. Like I will be able to break down every conversation damn near perfectly and then move on to the next conversation like nothing happened. Whereas if I'm sober and we have this conversation, I'm going to spend a lot more time thinking about it during the conversation and after the conversation before I move on to anything else.
Right.
So I think it's just that when you have that liquor in you, everything is just firing on all cylinders.
You get rid of that intellectual residue from the last thing you were talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up. He was mostly drunk.
I mean, you know how it was. Friday night, Saturday night. You knew what room we was going to. You knew who was going to be at there pre-gaming. You knew where we were going.
I was just about to say, like, you tried to make pre-gaming sound so elegant, man. He's been saying, well, Josh, perhaps did you have to think that before we would go out?
Okay. You got anything else, Brian?
No, sir.
No. All right. You have a recommendation of the week, Des?
I do. I'm glad you said recommendation, because our recommendation of the week, we're gonna go with books back to back. You know, I haven't read the book Ant mentioned yet, but Richest Man in Babylon by it's either George S. Clayson or S. George Clayson. I think it's George S. Clayson. But yeah, it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. It's a short read too, so you know I'm not going to give you nothing that you gotta, mark time out of your day to read and then spend time digesting. Like, it's a really, really good book. I ain't gonna give you no 48 Laws of Power recommendation, even though I'm pretty sure I recommended that before. But we're gonna go with the short, simple reads.
Cool. All right, if you guys like the discussion, don't forget to hit the like button. We're gonna see you guys next week. Peace.
But while you're here, be sure to check out other great content from the Breakdown crew, including previous episodes of the podcast, Joshua versus Movies, Joshua versus Music, and of course, haven't forgotten about my plant lovers, Feel the Love. Just check out this begonia.